Hello and welcome to this edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm David Nicholas, and we welcome before all of you State Representative Charles Brunner. He is a Democrat from Bay City. He is seeking re-election to a second term for the state's 96th district. Representative, thanks for joining us and welcome back to our program.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Given the title of our show and a chance then for you to, in this instance, as you're seeking re-election, reintroduce yourself. Give us, in the first couple of minutes, a little bit of your background, hometown, and sort of to acquaint folks, sort of the map of the 96th district.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Born and raised in Bay City, Michigan. Proud graduate of CMU, by the way. Taught school in Midland Public Schools for 30 years. Retired 5 years ago and ran for the seat of mayor of Bay City and was proud to be the mayor of Bay City for 3 years. Due to term limits, this seat opened up and I ran for this seat for the State House for the 96th District, which is, by the way, Bay City and Southern Bay County, the surrounding townships. So very excited to represent the folks from the Great Lakes Bay region.
Looking at the issues as they have been identified, a chance for you to point to where you feel the primary issues are for this campaign and moving forward, and then looking back at your first term in office, what do you feel you've done so far to address those?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. Balancing the budget is something that ever since I've been involved in government, which was 6 years at the city commission level and 3 years as mayor, and now the last 2 years as state representative. Balancing the budget, of course, is always everybody's big concern. When the pie keeps shrinking, everybody wants the same piece, and you can't do that. So it's very difficult to do that. So during my 9 years as a representative for the city of Bay City, we had to do that, very difficult to do. And of course, now 2 years, 2 budgets with our current governor. I understand what the governor wants to do, and of course my voting record would indicate that I didn't support pieces of the budget, mainly because I think there's some other directions we could have gone and some other areas that we could have funded. I guess I'm maybe a little prejudiced, if you will, because I'm a retired educator, and I really think we could put more money into education. That being said, I understand what the governor wants to do to create an atmosphere in the state of Michigan where business can thrive. We passed the 2 budgets. We're moving forward, and I think probably one of the things that I'm most proud of is the constituency work that we do for the folks that have difficulty manipulating through the bureaucracy of state government. We get calls daily from folks who don't know where to turn, and so helping the people in the district is something that I'm very, very proud of. And of course, being on a couple committees that are very important to the state. There are 19 committees, as you well know, in the House of Representatives that I could serve on, but the 2 that I'm on are the Agriculture Committee and also the Energy and Technology Committee, which are both integral to our state's future and very important to our economy. So, especially in the, excuse me, in the Bay County area, agriculture is it's huge. And I've done everything that I can to educate myself, to learn about agriculture and energy and technology as well, as we've worked our way through some things. So, excuse me. So those are very important. I'm proud of those assignments. And I'm also very proud of the fact that I got a bill passed. Now, that's not that significant if you're in leadership, but being a Democrat, of course, in a House and a Senate that's controlled by the Republicans and a Republican governorship, I'm proud of that because it shows that I can work with folks on the other side of the aisle, because they didn't have to let me do that. And I was able to get a bill passed and signed into law by the governor about 2 months ago, and it was part of the governor's program of revisiting legislation and laws that were becoming outdated, and it was a remake of the Weights and Measures Act, which was about 30 years old, and the Department of Agriculture worked with industry to kind of go through and say, okay, how can we bring that up to date? And weights and measures means, of course, scales and things that are in retail operations, that are in manufacturing operations, and it also includes the measuring of gasoline to make sure that there's, if you're buying a gallon of gas, especially at today's prices, you're getting a gallon. So that was passed and signed into law by the governor about 2 months ago. And I'm very proud of that, not so much of the bill itself, but more so the fact that I'm able to work with the folks on the other side of the aisle, which is what the public wants us to do. There's no question about it.
Well, you mentioned the votes when it came specifically to the big issue of the budget, and your votes on those bills in that process, and then this in getting that bill passed. Are there other things legislatively that you did introduce or were trying to get through that did not successfully go through in this term that in seeking re-election you would want to bring up in a second term if elected?
Yeah, just you know, off the cuff, just recalling from the background, there was a package of bills actually that I signed on to. One, elder abuse is something I'm very concerned with. A couple other bills that I had to take a look at because of the gentleman that won the lottery, won the $2 million in the lottery. Turns out, of course, he lived in the 96th district and became very concerned that he had won $2 million and still qualified for food assistance. So I put in a bill to change that, and since then there's been a couple pieces of legislation that have actually been enacted to help basically identify folks that now have come into this large sum of money and say, okay, let's at least take a look at that and have some different qualifiers to determine whether they should receive that assistance. But one thing that I'm working on, and there's a number of efforts going on, and anybody from, I'd like to think that most folks will agree with me, from Bay City in southern Bay County, is the beach out at the Bay City State Park. As co-chair of the Great Lakes Bay Region Caucus, which is our representation from the Great Lakes Bay region, which encompasses Mount Pleasant, Representative Cotter is part of that group as well. When we got together initially a year and a half ago, I said, you know, we really need to pick just a couple issues to get behind them, and my issue is the beach out at the Bay City State Park. And so I'm hoping that we can clean that up and bring it back to viability so that all the folks that are talking to me, including myself, when they look at those photos from the 60s and the 50s about how that beach was packed and how it was such a generator of activity, that we can bring that back. And that includes basically being able to groom the beach. And there is and you talk to people that live along the shore, and you might be familiar with this, there's kind of a level of some muck that's been studied, and it's there, but my contention is, okay, it is there, let's get it out, let's clean up the beach, and let's bring it back. And so I think there's a movement in that direction. I know Senator Green has brought the directors up, and I'm happy to work with our contingency from the area to see what we can't do to bring that beach back to basically the way it was, so folks can go out there and recreate and don't have to look for the beach. There's a small section now, but still there's that muck that's along the edge. So I think it's something that we can I'd like to see the entire beach groomed and do something to get the muck out of there so we can bring that back as far as just a nice beach and another alternative for folks that are coming to the area, the Great Lakes Bay region, where they can recreate.
What else, as you've made your travels through the district during the campaign, have voters been telling you, whether they be a continuation of issues from the prior campaign or have been introduced as new concerns now, that would be things that you would be targeting again if elected to a second term, that you would be making as priorities if reelected?
Yeah, very good question. You know, of course, you know, some of the things that I'm hearing as I'm out knocking doors now, people's concerns, you know, number one is jobs, and anything we can do to stimulate activity, economic activity, is something we need to do. I actually had a lunch with the governor, myself, and a half a dozen other legislators, and you know, the Pure Michigan campaign, I was very happy to support. As a matter of fact, it was one of my first votes to take some money out of I believe it's the 20th Century Jobs Fund, 21st Century Jobs Fund, $20 million, and put it into the Pure Michigan campaign. And that was based on statistics that we were provided that show that it's actually paying off, so to speak, in that we're creating an image. And one of the things I said to the governor at the lunch was, I said, Governor, I said, you know, I hope we're going to take the Pure Michigan campaign And we're going to kind of translate that into economic activity. In other words, promote that around the world and just kind of use that campaign because it's been successful in the tourist industry, but let's put it to work now in job attraction and economic activity. And actually, unbeknownst to me, you know, and the governor said there's already plans in the works to do that, and it is being used. And it's, I think it's successful. I think, you know, we are coming back. The economy is fragile. In all the years I've been in government, which is going on 10 years now, past at every, you know, at the city level and now at the state level, we have balanced the budget. And every year when we finish balancing the budget, having to make cuts, you know, I always cross my fingers and hope, is this, you know, that we're at the bottom and maybe next year will be better. Well, that was 10 years ago. And every year it's not only gotten worse, it's gotten much worse and become much more difficult to do. So I hope we've turned the corner. I think the economy is very fragile. There are some very good indicators that we're starting to come back. You know, some of the revenue projections now for the state based on the budget and some of the cuts that have been made, that we hopefully will have some additional money even this year, and I would like to see those monies go into education. Again, being a little prejudiced because I'm a retired school teacher, but I truly believe that you can be number one on the business side, and you know, with the cuts, you know, and the tax on pensions, which I disagreed with, but I understand what's happening with that. But I also think we need to pay close attention to our educational system and put money into that system, and by that I mean our educators, because if we want to be number one for business attraction, and we want people to bring their families here, once we say, okay, it's very viable to run a business in Michigan, now I'm bringing my family, I want the best for my family. Probably one of the first or second questions they ask after they make that decision is, what's the educational system like? And I fear that by some of the major cuts that have been made to education, that, you know, we may be heading in the wrong direction. And there are some things that I disagree with as far as, you know, the cyber schools, the expansion of cyber schools, and also the you know, the increase in lifting the cap on charter schools. But again, I refer back to my public education background, and I have some very strong feelings about public education, and I just think it's such a fine institution, not only educationally, but I think there's a huge social component to public education, you know, which helps our young people develop into good citizens.
If in our last half minute then you were to take all of these things that you've discussed, crystallize that down into the message you want to leave with the voters as you seek a second term for this district office, what would that message be?
Well, I think, you know, going back to, you know, a couple of things I said, jobs, 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 whatever we can do to foster some great opportunities in the state of Michigan, Great Lakes Bay region, that's very important. You know, education, I think we need to properly fund education and put some money into our classrooms. Some of these teachers are investing 5, 6, 7 years in education, but we keep taking away, and the numbers are showing that. We have fewer people going into it. Of course, the job market isn't as, and I'm sure they're looking at the job market and say the jobs aren't there, but I think too, some of the respect for teachers in the classroom is missing as well. But you know, those are probably two of the major issues that I really hope to foster and work on.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us, talking about all these issues, and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thank you.
Thanks. And thank you for joining us as well. This has been Meet the Candidates. Our guest has been Representative Charles Brunner, the Democratic representative from the 96th District in Bay City, running for re-election to a second term. A reminder that all of these programs will be posted on our website at WCMU.org. A reminder, too, that both candidates from both parties have been invited to be a part of this series. Remember to go out and exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 6th.